The public lecture was compelling. David Ofosu Dorte was the main speaker. He talked about how, his analysis of manifestos, throughout the history of our republic, demonstrate that, look, it's usually around some 12 issues now that the promises are made. These 12 issues are determined by the politician, and then the promises are made by the same politician, and then we the voters have to choose between them based on which promises we prefer. So at some point the voters' needs are lost in the mix. That's the general thrust of the point David Ofosu Dorte was seeking to make. So the idea is, how do we turn the cycle around so that it is rather what the people want that determines what goes into the politician's manifesto? I don't know about that. Because to be perfectly honest, anywhere you go in the world, this is kind of what happens. The agenda is set by the people who were last in control of the resources. Here in our part of the world, that is even more pronounced, because the people who were last in charge of the resources are also in charge of information. So they are the ones who will tell you what your problem is. They would, in fact, even when the vice president said that Winston quotes him about, since then, is that how political discourse has followed? Are they basing their commentary on how the economy is doing on our pockets? When they say we have turned the corner, is it based on our pockets? When they say that the 2024 is the Nkunim budget, is it based on our pockets? So look, politicians will always tell us what our problem is. How do we turn it around? Is there a solution here? I listened to David Ofosu Dorte beginning to end, and I was hoping that there would be some physical strategy on how, as a people, we can turn this cycle around. Because, to be honest, I don't know where it's been done successfully.
All over the world. And, history has always had a fight over these same matters. But let's be quite clear on it. The entire conception that the people who are qualified to rule are the people who are called philosophers is because those people, one, they can think, the philosophy part. Two, they have the God-given right to rule, which history made almost nonsensical. What we have failed to do over the years is let our thinkers rule or be part of the ruling. We have sideline thinkers in the state that it almost become the Choboy people that get to rule. So policies, what gets attention, what is given prominence, is the reason why you can hardly distinguish a purportedly leftist party from a right-center party in the Republic of Ghana. It's because there's no proper thinking happening. The things we want to do to our state, the values we want to uphold, there is nothing deeply being thought about these things. So it just happens to be in the political cycle that we repeat them. Oh, we need better healthcare. How? When? Who funds that? It becomes yeah. So then we just use small conversation because we have bought ourselves into a corner that we do not have the brains that think properly. So let's just stay with the slogans. People will keep it in their heads and they'll vote for it. Until and unless we bring thinking to the forefront. So, politicians may not have time to do that. Academics also wonderfully asleep, or they have no relevance in the scheme. Policy people also gladly lie somewhere without it. We should not forget that thinking is what built a state. The conception of statehood is built on ideas. If the ideas are porous and useless, it will show finally in your implementation and in your development. Your colleagues elsewhere, check the Chinas, check the Japans, they all have foundational thinking that's put them where they are today. You ask yourself in this republic, who is thinking for the state? Who is thinking for political parties? Who are the people whose ideas have influenced political party structure?
Well, you see, what is politics really? Is it the posing of alternative choice for people to make a decision of who gets what when? Well, But I think that was it Professor Samuel Adams, Professor Adams of Gimpa, who said politics, and I'm trying to quote loosely. That says that it's getting into power and deciding what the people need you to do for them in order that you continuously stay in office. Now, the point, I've looked at David Ofosu Dorte's point. He's talked about how it looks like the same thing. As a people, Raymond, what's our understanding of our problem? What is our understanding of the solutions to our problems? You get it? Because, look, the politicians would make promises based on your continuous, conversation about the problems you're going through and how these problems should be solved. So if our conversation today about the Ghanaian economy consistently is inflation, debt, exchange rate, the questions would always focus on how do I improve the macroeconomic environment? How do I ensure we have a better, GDP? How do I ensure a better per capita income, which doesn't really show that you're doing well? But that's because the very people whom you expect to actually talk about the very things that affect the people, the things that we need when it comes to healthcare delivery, for instance, what is happening when it comes to healthcare, that we are investing more and yet our life expectancy is reducing.
Outcomes are low.
So we put in a lot of effort which do not correspond to they don't correlate with the outcomes. What does that tell you? How do you do it?
Compared to countries with less number of
exactly.
PhDs, for example.
We don't do all of these things because the Ghanaian consistently focuses on how much the effort is even rewarded. In the past, we have applauded dreams. That's a problem. So you get your kind of politicians. Let's face it. I'm happy we're talking about this. It's about time we also changed our thinking. Let's not just sit back and say, oh, today now they say, I say my personal inflation is very high. My personal economy is poor. So when you begin to have these conversations, take it onto the national front, then we begin to have decisions. And I remember very well, as I end on this note, Obama and John McCain, both of them were referring to Joe the plumber at a point, because Joe the plumber had talked about his conditions. And when they went back to Joe the plumber told them how he was not pleased with the response of both men. That is a serious jurisdiction.